Good morning, everyone. I'm just talking to y'all a little bit while I'm on my way to work. Just wanted to even talk a little bit about last night and just how important it is that you guys saw my humanity last night when I saw the video about the Afro-Latina member of the armed forces and the way he was treated and the prejudice that he was treated with, and just how I responded. And I made a blanket statement in my passion that, like, if you can't see this as racism, you're racist. And I later apologized and asked for forgiveness for making that statement and altered it to say that if you can't see this as prejudice, then you are prejudiced, which I stand by without a doubt. Prejudice is the mother of racism. It is how racism comes into being when people don't curtail or deal with their prejudices. Over time, it eventually, becomes fully grown, if you will, and eventually becomes racism, not necessarily in the life of the person that is prejudiced or practices some prejudice, but definitely in the lives of the generation that comes after them, without a doubt. And so, I think it's really important, though. That's not even why I wanted to talk about this. What I wanted to talk about, because one of the people that were on live, they were like, hey, you know what I mean? That's such a blanket statement, and statements like those are part of the problem. Like the racist statement about, if you don't see this as racist, you are racist. And I think that that's true on some level, but I think another thing that is also part of the problem, if we're going to talk about this, and I think this is one of the reasons why it's so healthy, for those of you who have seen my other videos, and we're going to be posting all the videos on this channel that all the different things that I've taught. For those of you who know me, you've heard me teach before. You know what I mean? I've taught the Word of God. I've taught these different things, and I'm going to continue to. You know that I am not a person that, like, I am known for my level-headedness. I have been punched in the face before and actually told the person who did it, God bless them. I am not easy to shake or get off my rocker. And I'm not saying any of that to brag. I'm saying all of that to make a point that if I can get off my rocker for all of 10 minutes, if that, from the point I saw the video to the point that, I altered that statement and began to change that statement. If I can get knocked off my rocker, then you better believe that it is very easy to get sucked in as someone who identifies as a black person, or as someone who the world has identified as a black person, because that's how that kind of works, unfortunately. We could talk about racial identity another time, but if you were not raised to identify as a black person, and the world does not identify you as a black person, then you are most likely not a black person. You're not a black person. You know what I mean? But it's one or the other could exist, or both could exist, but that's besides the point. If we, going into this, if someone like myself, who is generally very level-headed person, it's not easy to get me in my emotions. If someone like myself can get sucked in and get thrown off, you better believe that the temptation to get sucked in, and it is a temptation, you know what I mean? I think it's the right thing to call it a temptation. You better believe that it's very easy for most people to get sucked in. And so this is kind of where the question comes in for my brothers and sisters that are of other cultures, that are not the culture of or that are not of black culture. Sorry, somebody was trying to get in the lane. I was trying to let them, and they're from a driving school, so it's probably taking a class or something. But yeah, like if you're not from the black culture, like this is something that, you know what I mean, you guys will just look at maybe, and you'll be like, man, why are they just getting so sucked into this? Is all of their reasoning, it's just based on their emotion, and it's based on this, and it's based on that. And I would ask you, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. And I think, based on what you know of me, like I'm hoping that, this is something that you will be able to kind of reevaluate within yourself if you've been one of the people that have made those statements, and try to understand that it is very hard to regularly watch people like you, people that you identify as your people, be mistreated and killed and all of these things on the news on a regular basis, and whether or not that is for an agenda purpose, like, because there's absolutely an agenda behind that, but whether or not there is an agenda behind it is irrelevant to the fact that it is hard to deal with. It's hard to watch. It's hard to regularly have to look at that and then have to stay level-headed afterwards. Like, that is a consistent battle and temptation for anyone who identifies as a black person. You know what I mean? That's not easy. And if you don't identify as a black person, like some people, even within the black community, they've been so wounded and hurt by the black community that they don't identify as a black person really anymore. Even though they are black, whether they like it or not, and the world sees them as such. If you don't identify as a black person and you've chosen to close off your heart to the plight of you know what I mean, your own people, technically, then I would encourage you to open your heart again. Not so that you can get wounded or get sucked into anything, but so that you can understand why people are so up in arms, like why people are so passionate. I think part of the problem is that we have to make a genuine effort to understand why there is so much passion, right? To understand why there's so much anger, to understand why someone could look at some of the videos that we watched last night and come away feeling, from all those videos, feeling like, wow, black people are just getting absolutely railroaded by the police. And don't get me wrong, black people do get railroaded by the police. Like, it just happens. It does happen. You know what I mean? There are statistics to prove that. Again, I'm gonna plug, which it will be on the channel soon. I did a conversation about systematic racism at one point. So please check that out. Check out that video. If you're confused about any of this, if you have debates about any of this, if you're like, well, I don't believe that systematic racism exists, I don't believe racism still exists, please check out that video. It is an eye-opener because I read facts, and it's not easy to hear, regardless of what people group you're in. It will absolutely break your heart. So I just wanted to talk about this and say that this is why we have to pray for the black community, because if you're not a part of the black community, you don't understand fully that struggle unless you choose to make an effort to understand it. But this is why we have to pray for the black community. This is why we have to pray and ask that God would really help us to keep level heads, to help us evaluate each thing case by case, to call injustice injustice, and call you know what I mean, a good cop a good cop. And then lastly, you know what I mean, this is why us in the black community that are level-headed. Have to pray for our brothers and sisters that are not a part of the Black community, that cannot understand why we respond the way we respond to things. You know, because I'm realizing that if you're not a part of the Black community, that I realize that it can be hard to look at these things and understand why we can get so passionate about them. But there is definitely something to be said for watching people that you identify with be treated terribly on the news on a regular basis. That is, I actually think that is traumatizing. You know, personally, I think there's trauma associated with that. You know, whether we like it or not, there just is trauma associated with seeing people you identified with treated terribly in like publicly, technically, like on a mass scale on news. Everybody is seeing this. I think there's trauma associated with that. That's just me. But that's why prayer is so important. That's why we need the Lord. I even go back to like that example I was talking about with my wife, who will be on the channel soon enough. You guys will get to meet her. Some of you are probably seeing her picture for the first time on the banner. If it's up there, it should be up there. If it's not up there, I'll fix it and get that up there. You know what I mean? But nevertheless, you will see my wife soon. But I go back even to that example with me and my wife. And again, you know, my wife is someone who feels very deeply about things. Like she feels very deeply about everything that she talks about and goes through. She's a passionate person, just like I am. But you know, again, like I had to stop myself when the George Floyd and the Breonna Taylor and all these different things were going on. I had to stop myself from getting completely sucked in. You know, because I was getting sucked in, my wife was getting sucked in. We were both starting to get kind of blinded with hurt, like we were both wounded, like hurt over these scenarios. And it took a second for us to, I had to take a second and just be like, hey, sweetie, like we need to stop and pray, because we are getting sucked into this. We are getting pulled in, and we're forgetting that we are Christian first before we are Black. And some of you may be like, no, I'm Christian and Black. And I would maybe put the idea to you that Jesus said you cannot serve two masters, right? That you can never, and that there will definitely be times where literally everything in life, no matter whether it be good or bad, will at some point in your life compete for first place. And so you have to make a commitment that, okay, my culture is not taking first place before Jesus, right? Generally, you don't have to choose between your culture and Jesus, like, you know, but there are going to be times when you have to. And I think we're in a day and age where choosing between my culture and Jesus does not mean I am no longer Black. It just means I am Christian first. That is my first priority. And so I'm not going to let myself get sucked in. I'm not going to let myself give in to unforgiveness. You know what I mean? If I say something I shouldn't have said because I did get a little sucked in, like I have to acknowledge it for what it is and repent of it and ask for forgiveness and all of that. Like, you know, but this is what it looks like. This is what a healthy Black Christian has to kind of look like nowadays, where you have to take each thing case by case, call injustice, but also call a good cop when they're a good cop. So yeah, so this is just a taste. This is like our first topic, but me and my wife want to talk about a lot of different things outside of the Bible studies. We want to talk about pop culture a little bit in Christianity, and not even just how those two merge, but even dissecting like some of the artists that I think call themselves Christian, and like us just like really like, you know, evaluating them for what they are, and, you know, evaluating the things that they've done for what they are, and like, you know what I mean? Let us reason together. Let, you know, just us talking about it with you guys and everything like that. So we think this is going to be great. We think you're going to really, 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 really enjoy this channel and the things that we're going to be pumping out. At the core of this channel is always going to be a desire to draw people to God, and just being specific. So like JP, Just Pray NYC, that's like a very evangelistic channel. This channel is going to be more pastoral in nature because that's who I am. I'm not a pastor as of now, but I am definitely called to be a pastor. The Lord has spoken that several times through an absurd amount of people at this point, especially when I was arguing him about it and didn't want to accept that that was what I was called to do. You know, and that's definitely where my calling is. And because of that, like the way that I handle my channel is going to be much more pastoral. So Bible teaching is going to be at the core of what this channel is about at all times, is equipping Christians and helping Christians to have everything that they need for life and godliness. And with that said, we're also going to be talking about pop culture, absolutely, and current events, because we believe that from a pastoral perspective, from a shepherd perspective, from a shepherding perspective, it's super important that we do not leave people basically at the mercy of the culture. So we personally believe that it is very important that we don't leave people at the mercy of the culture, meaning that we don't leave people simply to wrestle with the pop culture stuff, with the current event stuff. We don't leave people to wrestle with that without making a genuine effort to draw them towards Jesus, draw them back to Jesus on those topics, and to even teach on those topics, because there are some believers that are not mature enough to defend against all the different winds and waves of doctrine and again of culture that are coming their way right now. So that's pretty much it. At this point, I am gonna let y'all go since I just arrived at my job. God bless y'all, love y'all, and I cannot wait to spend more time with y'all in the future. God bless. Bye-bye.